Today I'd like to talk about Buddhist centered protest. So I know many people are going to protest today. If today's protest isn't in line with your political views, then I've tried to make the talk expansive. So please hear it according to what you personally might want to protest. Could apply to anything. However, given that today there's a lot going on out there, I thought this would be a time-sensitive talk. So, guidelines for a protest. I was thinking about this a lot because there's a new Buddhist organization that's it's engaged Buddhism centric, or I can't remember what they're called, Coalition for Buddhist Action Coalition, and they've really thought a lot about their principles and their organizing beliefs. And I got a newsletter from them sometime, I think it was this summer, and I saw the newsletter and they had a photo of one of the events they had gone to. And there were signs, everybody had signs. And one of the signs was really a very clear violation of right speech. And I was really surprised, maybe even, well, shocked might be an exaggeration, but like, why did y'all, like, you have Buddhist on your name. They had a big banner that says Buddhist, and yet they had this really offensive speech. And so just thinking about what we might consider when we really feel that we need to speak up. And again, like I said, this can apply to any political action. You know, if you're a person who has a deeply held belief that abortion is wrong, then apply this to that. If you're a person who has a deeply held belief in other realms, apply it to whatever you feel most centered toward. Guidelines for protest. The Dharma has a rooting in ethical behavior. So we have enough teachings surrounding us that we can take those and build a structure from which to speak. So I want to be clear in saying that there are sometimes it's not only appropriate but necessary to speak up. When harm is happening, it's really time to open your mouth. You know, if you're on the subway and somebody's being harassed in front of you, then that's the time to really do something. And there are trainings for how to do interventions that are not necessarily getting in the angry person's face. You know, you create a distraction. You can pretend that the person being harassed is your long lost friend and just go straight toward them. You don't have to confront the aggressor, but doing nothing is also doing something. Doing nothing is condoning the actions that happen by your silence. However, knowing when to speak can be tricky. So when we feel a need to speak up, to really say something, we have to start by being very clear in our intention, as in everything in Buddhism. What do we need to say? Why? Where is this coming from? And our intention should not be merely reactionary. Our intention must be motivated by compassion and understanding. When our intention comes out of a motivation of compassion, then whether or not we sort of mess up or things go awry, we can be sure that our intention is there and we can return to that. Well, what is your intention? And the second thing to be clear about is know what you're there for. What are you asking for? What do you need? What do you feel is important? So if it's just, I don't like things in general and I'm angry, then that's not very clear. But I think everyone can do this. You can dig in a little bit and understand what you're asking for, and then make that clear when you're there. What are you asking for? Make it clear internally. If you choose to use a sign, then make it clear on your sign. You know, I was looking at some of the signs from the rally for today, and I found them, that I think this is some of the motivation, I found them a little ambiguous. So I saw a lot of anti-signs, but I didn't see a lot of signs of what we want. What do you want? What's important? So switch it from being a, I don't like this, to I would like to see this. And in switching it, we change. We give space. You know, we make it clear that there are other possibilities. And the intention, I would like to suggest, in addition to coming from a place of compassion, also should examine and very clearly understand, what is the harm? Is there harm? That's a really helpful guideline. I remember many years ago, His Holiness the Dalai Lama was giving a talk in Idaho, and somebody asked him what his views were on gay marriage, which this was many years ago, so it was an issue then. And he's a celibate monk, and traditional Tibetan teachings, you know, were for monks, and they don't allow sex at all. And so certainly not the kind of relationship that this person was asking about. So in many ways, he's not qualified at all to answer this question, which he said. He's like, why are you asking me? I'm a celibate monk. But they pushed him. And he said, no harm. So I've come back to that many times, asking where the harm is. The next thing I really want to encourage people to focus on is our connection with others. In being there, when your intention is motivated by compassion, then connection is really important. Saying things in a way that even if someone disagrees with you, they won't feel personally attacked. Can we do that? Is that possible? Maybe it's a dream, but it could be our intention. And when we make that intention from the inside out, you know, as our inner intention, then it starts to come out in our outer actions. So we have to be clear within ourselves why we're there, what we're asking for, motivated by compassion, aware of our intent, aware of our connection with the whole universe, because we are all here in this universe together. And splitting apart is not going to solve things. We must be conscious of the oneness of all beings. Come back into balance with the oneness of all beings. That has to be part of our consideration. So you can see that, I hope, that I'm not advocating for walking down to the protest and joining it just because it's something to do in the afternoon and maybe your friends are there. Nor am I advocating for taking all of your grievances in the whole world about everything and bringing them. Be clear why you're there. I mentioned having the Dharma as the structure, and I'd like to talk about that a little bit. We have the precepts, for one thing. In particular, in this case, we have the precepts around speech, not speaking about others' errors and faults. So this precept is not about not talking at all, and it's not about not saying things that make you uncomfortable. There are times where it's necessary to speak up, even when we feel uncomfortable. So it's not about avoiding discomfort. This precept requires true honesty and speaking directly to people, saying the thing that needs to be said through the filter of our practice. So then, what is a fault and what is the speaking about others' faults? A fault has this kind of a static quality. And we know in Buddhist practice that everything changes. I've been talking about this recently, the truth of impermanence. So if we see someone in a very static way, you are this, then that's not the precept of not speaking about others' faults. Everyone changes. So what we speak about, rather than their faults, this immutable characteristic that we have, you're a bad person or you're always going to be this way, talk about specific actions. That's a much better way to engage. So if you're going to speak up about something that someone did, which may be necessary, then speak about a specific action. It's not that hard to find, if you really look. But refrain from the dehumanizing behaviors of, making someone into an animal or calling them a snack food. Or, anyway, dehumanizing behaviors are behaviors that, dehumanizing language is language that dehumanizes a person. When you make them into an animal, a body part, a snack food, those are all ways of making them less human. And as we know from, I've talked about dehumanizing behaviors many times. Once we make someone a little less human, then we can justify hurting them, even violence. So don't make people less than human. Step back from that type of language, even about people who do terrible harm. Be brave. Just use their name. Dehumanizing behaviors, dehumanizing language hurts us as well as hurting them. When we dehumanize one of our fellow human beings, we are not recognizing their Buddha nature. And we know every human being, everything in the universe is Buddha nature. Everything. So even that person you like the least has Buddha nature. So making them less than human is a way of dismissing or diminishing their Buddha nature. And this hurts us because, again, we're all one. We're all in this together, and we don't wake up until all beings simultaneously wake up. Nobody wakes up alone. We also have the guidelines of right speech, which I love talking about. It's been so helpful for me. As I've mentioned several times, I keep a little sticky note of them on my computer. It's helpful for me to, like say I have a difficult email to write or a report to write up that I know is going to be a little bit, have things to say that the person might not like reading. So I just use that sticky note to like I say what I want to say, and then I comb through the guidelines of right speech to see how I can say it in a way that can be within the guidelines. And the reason is I want to say it in a way that can be heard. Say it in a way that causes help and not harm. So what are the guidelines for right speech? Is it true? Is it true? That's pretty simple. But there are many kinds of mistruths. A misrepresentation of the truth is another way of saying a lie. Flattering ourselves too much or someone else, or denigrating them. So really be scrupulously honest. You can say what you need to say in a way that's completely true without resorting to exaggeration or slanting the truth to your benefit or to your position's benefit. So use that as a filter. Is it true? Is it scrupulously honest? I saw an article this week or last week written about allegations of abuse in a Buddhist community. And I found the article so off-putting that I felt that I initially wanted to dismiss the whole thing altogether. But the allegations were very concerning, if true, and the behaviors were really concerning. So then I had to sort of filter out all of the potential, like the sort of slant and the meanness of the article to try to dig down and get to what they were saying, what was most important. And what I wished for was for them to have said it in the first place in a way devoid of their slander, their I heard this, or I thought maybe this, or their insinuations, because that just clouded the truth. Oh, should that person have written the article? If they believed harm was happening, yes, write it. But write it in a way in accordance with the truth. Just say the truth. The truth is the best way to speak. We don't need all the extra. When we distort the truth, it distorts our credibility. You've experienced this yourself. If you misrepresent something to your own advantage, then people trust you a little less, even if it's subtle or small. So be scrupulously honest. Second, do I speak gently? So maybe using a lot of F-bombs and cursing loudly is not the best approach. How can I say what I need to say in a way that can be heard? So speaking gently is part of that. Next, is it the right time? Timeliness is so helpful. So consider if it's the right time to say something. Fourth, is my speech beneficial? Oriented toward help and not harm. And do I speak with a kindly heart? So this is really important. Do I speak with a kindly heart? As you know, I love the teachings of Samdhong Rinpoche, the former Prime Minister of Tibet and very long-term Buddhist monk. He has things to say on this. He's speaking here about violence that happens and ethical misconduct. We have to deal with each one of the gross misconducts. And of course, right action does not mean that in the absence of gross misconduct, all other actions are right. I definitely agree that acceptance of injustice is also an injustice. Acceptance of violence is definitely violence. He speaks very strongly here. Acceptance of injustice is also injustice. Acceptance of violence is violence. The Buddha explained very explicitly on many occasions how violence is committed. You do violence by yourself. You encourage someone else to do a violent act, or you appreciate an act of violence. So hard to ask ourselves, are there times where we have silently condoned an act of violence or felt a sense of satisfaction around violence that someone else did? All of these are equally wrong. There's not much difference between them. So therefore, it's our responsibility to dissociate ourselves from acts of violence. If a nation is waging war, we should express our disagreement. By not expressing our disagreement, we become, so to speak, citizens of that nation, and in doing so, become party to that war. We become the killers of whoever is killed during the war. And all injustices must be opposed. Not opposing an injustice is a kind of silent agreement with or support for the doers of injustice. So we must oppose it. But the opposition must be right action. So he's referring back to the Eightfold Noble Path, which teaches us how to be on the Buddhist path. And right action is an essential part of that. Stopping a thief by counter theft is not right action. Violence is to be stopped by compassionate, nonviolent action. And nonviolent action is also very difficult. Unless you have a compassionate mind and are not influenced by anger or hatred, your mere physical nonviolence is not nonviolence. So whatever we have to oppose, it must be opposed by genuine nonviolence with a compassionate mind. Not so easy, huh? Completely possible. This is what we have our practice for. This is what we have the Dharma for, to teach us how to develop a compassionate heart, or how to let our compassionate heart naturally shine. Teaching us how to be, how to act, and then letting go of our ego. Letting go of the idea of a separate self, so that we can truly get ourselves out of the way and respond appropriately. So in that way, it's not that hard. We have everything that we need available to us through the practice. We just have to listen, engage, and do it. Oh, our practice must be put into action, not just listen to it or read about it or sort of float through it. We can use our practice to teach us how to show up to our life, not just for a protest, but for anything you see. It teaches us how to be, so it's freely available to us. When we engage, then we can do it in a way that is oriented toward help and not harm. And this is our intention. I have a friend who lives in Oregon, in Portland, who is a Quaker. And Quakers their organizing principle is nonviolence and social justice. So the Quakers have been witnessing the arrests at the ICE headquarters. So they show up, they film, they document, and they're there for people. So they've been showing up for some time. One of the Quakers in the Quaker community was arrested a few months ago based on AI, not human witnessing, but on an AI, they said, and accused of things that are quite violent, which goes against his own principles. Nevertheless, the Quakers keep showing up. And she shared with me a story from very recently. So in Portland, right now, it's one of the places that the government is particularly focused on, especially for ICE raids, for arresting non-documented people. So my friend has been involved, and she knows her place and according to her own religion, which is to be a Quaker, you must show up and you must witness and you must be nonviolent. So she said a friend called her, my friend is also a Buddhist at the same time, and was, she said it was sort of a similar, it was a refrain that she'd heard before. The friend was like, oh, I wish I were doing more. I don't know what to do. I'm so frustrated and I want to be more active and I'm not sure how to respond. And I'm so distressed by the situation. And my friend she said, finally, I was like, you know what? I've had enough. And she said, we'll call the Buddhist person, call them Yuko, because that's such a common name for her. So, Yuko, enough. You've been talking about this for a long time. Just do something. There are so many things that you can do if you just look. Let me tell you one of them. So the protesters during the daytime have been quite nonviolent. They've been wearing their frog costumes and their Tyrannosaurus Rex costumes and dancing, and that's fine. But as soon as those people go home, it becomes nighttime, 10 p.m., then things start to get a little edgier. So why don't you show up at 10 p.m. and lead a meditation in the middle of that? And the friend was like, and Yuko was like, oh, wow, I could do that. I guess I could do that. And she was like, yes, you can do that. So she agreed to do it, and they promoted it through different networks. And she went, and maybe she was nervous. And they had a meditation right there. And a whole bunch of people came. They even drove in from the suburbs just to go to this nighttime meditation. People who had finished work and had their dinner, they found their place to plug in. And something about that spoke to so many people, offering peace in the middle of it all. Just had to act. That was it. So we have to be creative and think of the best thing to do. And we also have to do something. And then the person who did it, Yuko, she was so happy that she had done something. And she had done something in alignment with her beliefs, with her truest intention. Win for everybody. No harm. I put a note for myself to end with this section. I would like to end here. This is back to Samdhong Rinpoche. Things are made better or worse by living beings, and in particular by human beings. The other living beings are quite innocent. They do not make a fuss. But things are changed a great deal due to the behavior of humanity, and particularly by the modern, educated, so-called civilized humanity, mainly because we have accumulated to the umpteenth power technology which could destroy this earth several times over. And at the same time, the defiled mind, the unenlightened mind, the mind influenced by hatred and attachment, has become stronger because negative emotions have been exploited and amplified by so much external conditioning and the desire for external possessions. Ain't that the truth? I mean, if you feel anger, ask yourself where it's coming from. Is it from the actions that you see, or is it from the influence of the technology coming in? Ask yourself these questions so that you can know your intention. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. Good signs are there, and danger is also definitely there. Hope and threat, both are there. We are at crossroads. We can still choose the right direction. That possibility is not completely lost. But it is a very crucial time and a dangerous time if humanity does not choose the right path. The course of the millennium is entirely up to us human beings. We need to educate and train people in an open and honest way about the dangers we are creating for the planet and all living beings on it. And we need to remind them that they can be transformed to more positive patterns of behavior and mindset. We have to act to save these things. And for that purpose, the message of love and compassion, the message of cooperation are absolutely essential. He speaks about His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the positive example that he brings, even in the face of terrible atrocities for the Tibetan people, which shows two things. Number one, the essential human approach or attitude is not for violence, but for peace. Because of that, they are attracted by His Holiness, because he gives only a simple message of nonviolence and kindness. And his books are read by millions. So it shows that there's a basic inclination within the human mind looking for nonviolence and peace. And that is the only social outcome. Please show up in a way that models nonviolence and peace, so that people may feel that and see that and be inspired by that. Be clear on what you want to say, on why you're there. Be clear in a way that makes people feel it. Practice loving kindness in the middle of the crowd, if that's helpful to you. It will be helpful to the crowd. If you see people acting violently, ask them to stop. It's not that hard. You just say, "Excuse me, could you please not do that? Please don't throw that rock." And then magically, if you approach them in a way that's connected and kind, they just put it down. I have tried this. It works. I guarantee it works. And if it doesn't, then try the next person. Keep trying. But show up in a way that helps, not harms. Thank you.